They needed all the colonies, the states, to be united if they even had a 10% chance of defeating the British. That's the truth. Those men who signed the Declaration of Independence, John Hancock did so very boldly, all signed their death warrant because the British wanted to collect every one of them up and execute them. This is what Independence Day, July 4th, is all about. I want to take a minute to go over the Declaration of Independence. These words you've heard before, but unfortunately most of our children in public schools will never. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to separation. Now, equal station to the laws of nature and nature's God. What does that mean? Through their writings and their pen, why do they keep talking about the laws of nature and nature's God? Because these were men of faith. Not all the same kind of Christian faith, but they were men of faith. There were Roman Catholics, there were Presbyterians, there were Episcopalians, and on and so forth. Jefferson and Franklin, the leftists, said they weren't religious. No, they were men of faith. But they were deists, which means they believed in God, but they didn't believe that God, praying to God, say, God, please do this, 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 and this, that God is going to say, oh, okay, I'll do this, 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 and this. But they believed in God. They just had a different view, but they believed in God. They embraced the Judeo-Christian values. They had read the great philosophers. They knew who they were, and the greatest philosopher during the Revolutionary period, the most widely read and embraced, was John Locke. The laws of nature and nature's God, John Locke writes about that as have many. What does that mean? It means your right to live, your right to life, your right to be free doesn't come from any government. It doesn't come from any man or any group of men. It comes from God Almighty. The laws of nature and nature's God. The right to private property, the right to be safe in your home, the laws of nature, nature's God. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator, reference to God again, with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, free will. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. In other words, your natural rights, your unalienable rights belong to you no matter what, even if you live in a tyranny, because they're God-given, you're born with them. And so they say these unalienable rights include life, liberty, and free will, the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. So government is created subsequently. You have the individual, you have the civil society, then you have government. And the job of government is to protect the civil society and to allow as much individual freedom as is possible within a civil society. Deriving their just powers from the consent of the government, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, your God-given unalienable rights. It is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles, and organizing its powers in such form, as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. That's the purpose of government. To secure your unalienable rights, to provide order and law so you can exercise your free will, and so your voluntary participation in the civil society increases the benefit of the whole community. It's government's job to try and nurture that, not destroy it. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. We don't rebel at the drop of a hat. They were saying this has been going on for years, what the Crown has been doing to us for years and years and years. And accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. Self-explanatory. Most men acquiesce to tyranny. And they're saying, not us. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. And they list over 20 of the issues, which I don't need to get into. One that had been on the original draft by Jefferson involved slavery. Subsequent draft removed it. Why? Because the revolution already began. They were at war. And they couldn't afford to lose the slave states, the southern states. They needed all the colonies, the states, to be united if they even had a 10% chance of defeating the British. That's the truth. Those men who signed the Declaration of Independence, John Hancock did so very boldly, all signed their death warrant because the British wanted to collect every one of them up and execute them. They all signed their death warrant, put their lives on the line. It's interesting to look into what happened to each one of them. I suggest you might want to do that on your own, just as a project, maybe with your family. Be very, very interesting. Some of them didn't do so well. Some of them did okay. Some of them would go on, as you know, to the next phase of the Republic, the Constitutional Convention. But this is what Independence Day, July 4th, is all about.
For all this and much more, sign up for LEVIN TV.